Welcome to HECTV's live interactive program tonight that's part of St. Louis.
The whole production is pulled together.
It's going to be a steel bridge.
On the American classic novel,
The car that put America on wheels.
Welcome to HECTV Live. Welcome to HECTV Live, where today we're at Portfolio Gallery in St. Louis, Missouri for our program of Inside the Artist Studio, Portfolio Gallery, in depth with artist Lonnie Powell. Hi, everybody. I'm Tim Gore, your host for today's program, and I'm very happy to welcome you to the gallery, where in a few moments we're going to meet Robert Powell, the man to my left, the curator and man who just runs everything here at Portfolio Gallery. Over the course of our programs, I've called him any number of things, maestro, etc., and he is indeed that. Most of our program today will be centered, of course, on the works of this exhibition that Lonnie Powell, an artist from Kansas City, has here at Portfolio Gallery. You're going to have the chance to ask Lonnie your questions specifically about his work, why he does what he does, the medium that he works in. We're going to see some examples of his work as we go throughout the space here, and you guys have a chance to go from piece to piece with us and ask the artist your questions. If you're watching us via the web or, of course, on television, then you can email us questions at any time to live@hectv.org. That's live@hectv.org. We're being joined by interactive schools from Arkansas, Texas, and Missouri today. And, guys, we're going to be coming to you in a few minutes with your questions and comments. We're looking forward to them throughout the program. So, Robert, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Tim.
Let's give everybody a chance, first of all, to understand about the Portfolio Gallery itself, its mission, its purpose. How long has it been here?
We're closing our 20th year. I founded Portfolio in 1989 with a mission to educate, enrich lives, and foster a greater awareness of art created by American artists of African American heritage. And we do that in a number of ways by providing classroom instruction to children, youth, adults, and the developmental disabled, along with various fine arts exhibits here at the gallery. So we keep trying to become a vehicle where the community can get in and ride and learn more about the African American artists.
And so you have artists who come from all over the country to
all
exhibit
over
works.
the country, right. We've had those who are just starting out to those who are household names, we hope, like Gordon Parks and Jacob Lawrence and Henry O. Tanner. Their artwork has been exhibited here also. So we try to be that venue. One of my challenges over the years to people who come in, I say, well, name 5 nationally known African-American visual artists, living or dead. Who are they? So we want to be that activist group that champions that, tries to open up some doors for that to become very common.
Well, let's give our students a chance to ask you some questions.
Okay.
We're going to meet the artist Lonnie Powell in a bit, but we thought you might have questions for Robert here about what it means to run a gallery, to curate, what got him interested in art, those kinds of things. So we're going to start by going to Lafayette High School out in the suburbs here of St. Louis in Wildwood. Lafayette, come on in and say hi. Do you have a question for Mr. Powell here about what it means to run a gallery?
Oh, there, okay. Hi, this is Lafayette. I don't believe we have any questions yet at this time.
No worries. We'll be coming back to you guys frequently. Let's go to Corning High School down in Arkansas. Corning, a question right now for Mr. Powell in the running of the gallery?
No, sir, not yet. We're just getting settled in, sorry.
No worries. It has nothing to do with you, Robert, whatsoever. It's early in the show, and the kids just don't have their question cells on yet, so I'm not worried about that. Let's go to Friendship High School down in, am I pronouncing this correctly? Woforth, Texas? Feel free to correct my pronunciation, guys, if I'm not right. Let's go to Friendship.
What did I say?
You pronounced it perfectly.
Ooh, cool. All right. Do you guys have a question right now?
Yes, we do.
Yes. So, when did you realize you wanted to do this subject matter, or have you always been interested in this?
Have you always been an artist yourself, Robert?
No, I didn't become an artist until I was about 23 years old. But when he says, when did I become interested in this, and I'm taking that meaning to found Portfolio to start with it, I joined the ranks of those who the best thing that ever happened to me was I was fired from a job. So once I had always told myself that if I were fired from a job, I would live the life that I wanted to live. And so Portfolio was born out of that kind of need. And here we're about to go into our 21st year.
Very cool. Yeah. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you,
We
Tim.
really appreciate the chance to spend this time. Folks want to learn more about the Portfolio Gallery. You have a website, Portfolio Gallery STLS St. Louis, portfoliogallerystlouis.org,
Right.
where they can find out about exhibitions that are coming, education materials, all sorts of things.
That's right. And they can contact us through that also.
Very good. So thanks very much for being here. We're going to give you now the chance to meet Robert's brother, Lonnie, the artist from Kansas City, is on exhibition here. Lonnie, come on in and join us. Thanks very much, Robert.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here again, Lonnie. It's good to see you.
You're quite welcome.
Let's talk a little bit to give the kids an idea about your history. Robert mentions that he wasn't really an artist or thinking about artists doing it until he was like 23. A similar experience for you? You're his sibling, or did you always grow up thinking, I want to doodle, I want to draw?
Yes, I've always wanted to be an artist as far back as I can remember, and so I can't remember any of my time on this earth that I didn't want to be an artist.
And were there certain subjects that originally, did you just draw the things around you? Or as a kid, were you fascinated by comic books and you tried to replicate what you saw in comic books? Were there certain things that just caught your eye at the youngest age you can remember?
And yes, of course, certain things did catch my eye, but I never had any role models, or I don't know where it came from. Nobody around me was an artist. I didn't know any artist. I just liked to draw. And where that came from or how it started, I really can't tell you. But as a matter of fact, my parents and my close friends always told me that you might starve being an artist, and you ought to learn how to do something else, just in case you don't make any money being an artist. And,
so you taught for a good long time as well, but all the time
Right.
you were teaching, you were still creating art.
Oh, yes, yes.
Well, that art you're going to see on display, because there's works from a very recent period of time, just the last year or two, as well as works that are 10, 15 years old in this exhibition. So we're going to be able to see a whole variety of it. And we're going to begin our exploration of some works in this exhibition by walking downstairs. And you guys are going to have the chance to see that first piece right now as we switch to our hand camera that's downstairs, and you guys can look at it. And with each of these pieces, as Lonnie, you and I begin to start walking, with each of these pieces, as you guys look at them, I want you to think in terms of what's your reaction to the piece? What do you think about the technique that you're seeing employed? What are you thinking about the different kinds of media that might be employed in it? What the subject matter, etc.? And as Lonnie and I come downstairs, we're going to move to this work so you guys are able to see it. And we're going to take a couple of moments here for you guys just to look at this piece before we ask you for your reaction to it and ask for questions you might have about this particular piece. And then, of course, begin to talk to Mr. Powell just about what it means to be an artist, that kind of thing. So this is actually a mixed media work. And Lonnie and I will talk about mixed media in a bit in terms of what that means. The name of this exhibition is entitled Still All Over the Place. And I'm going to let the students know that's still all over the place. We're going to come back to that exhibition title later and talk about why that happened. But let's begin by going to Lafayette High School first. What are your thoughts about this work? What do you notice about the young lady in the picture? Does it convey any emotion and expression to you? What do you notice about figure, color, or whatever? And then what's the first question you'd like to ask Lonnie about what it means to be an artist? Take it away, Lafayette.
My name is Nicole Chalice, and my question is, what inspired you to create it?
The same thing that inspires me to create any piece is pretty much the same. I wanted to do positive images of African Americans because when I was young, I didn't see those things in any of the books or movies or anything that I saw. So I wanted to do works that were of African Americans, where they were not in a servile position or a maid or picking cotton or holding George Washington's horse. because there was so much more to African American life than that. And being part of that society, I felt that I should portray that. So the inspiration here on this particular piece, although all of that I've just said was part of it, this particular piece was just fun for me. And the thing about this piece is that it's a good one to start with because it shows my first love, which is drawing. And of course, this is not normal size, normal proportion figure. I've exaggerated and made some parts smaller than they're supposed to, but just for the rhythm of the whole piece, I did this. And this basically is pencil, pastel, and watercolor.
Okay, so it's a combination.
It's a combination.
I'll ask Dan, our handheld cameraman, I don't know how close he can get in to see the facial expression of the young lady, because we want to talk a little bit about the emotional expressivity. But as we go to our next group, let's go to Corning, Arkansas. What are your thoughts about this young lady in terms of what you think she might be experiencing? What's the emotion you see in this picture? And what's the question you guys have for Mr. Powell? Go ahead, Corning.
I'm Ricky Sisk, and I was wondering how you came up with the name.
What is the name for this particular piece?
Okay. I think this is called Little Mama. And that's just part of the whole humorous thing. This model was you know, fairly small.
So you used a model for this picture?
Sure.
Okay.
And of course, she doesn't look like this. I've elongated and exaggerated, and so that's what makes it not a portrait. Okay. I used her basically for the lights and the darks and the way the shadows work there. But I just knew a young lady way back when that they used to call Little Mama, and she had an attitude like that, like she was the little mama. She was probably the smallest thing in the group, but she ran everything, and so that this model made me think of back in those times and back into that age of, say, she's a new Little Mama, so.
I can see that in her facial expression. She looks like a woman who could take charge if she wanted to. I certainly get that idea. Her feet firmly planted on the ground, her hands up there on her head, giving you a little bit of what for. I can see that. Let's go to Friendship High School down in Wolforth again. Friendship, your thoughts about this work and a question for Mr. Powell?
Question?
Oh. What contrast do you have in this painting?
What contrast do you have in this painting, and talk about the idea of lights and darks and contrast a bit, why that matters to you.
Okay. Contrast. In most of the paintings that you'll see, contrast, light and dark, just playing light against dark, trying not to use a whole lot of lines, but putting masses of darks against masses of lights. And so the contrast is all through it, and especially with the negative spaces that dance around in the arms, the light against dark. Instead of relying totally or heavily upon the line, this is more about masses of darks and lights, and very, very few what you might call lines, but lines are made because you put the dark against the light.
Okay.
And so, the contrast is, to me, very evident.
We had an email question that came in, and don't forget, folks, you can email us at live@hectv.org. We had an email question that came in asking about whether it was artists or techniques or things or styles that have inspired you over time. Are there certain artists you've attempted to emulate or things you've thought about in your work, whether it be stylistically or whatever?
Sure. my my greatest hero is Charles White, artist of the 40s and the 50s, an African-American artist. One of the first African-American artists that I found that I could relate to with his interest in the figure and the just the African-American doing and painting the African-American in a positive light, in a dignified manner. And so from the standpoint of where he was coming from with his art, and also from the point of just his mastery with darks and lights, he is by far my greatest hero. And then, of course, next would come a whole slew of artists: Winslow Homer, Vermeer, and untold others, Rubens, of course, Michelangelo.
the whole gamut. But that's
Right.
cool that kids would know that, because obviously Charles White is very contemporary, modern, 40s and
Right.
50s, but obviously Vermeer and Rubens and Michelangelo, we're talking, you know.
Oh, yes.
So it's nice that the art, those historic subject matters still matter to you, or people we think about in art history books.
Right.
Would still matter to you and inspire you. We're going to have the chance now to go to a second work. Keep thinking about what your questions are. We'll start again as we move around. Looking at this work, which is going to be very, very different. This is a pretty pale and pastel work that we've seen. We're going to go to one which shows a lot more color. So, Dan, thanks for going with us. And we'll move around here to the other side. As you can see, we're in a beautiful old Victorian house here where Portfolio Gallery is housed. And so you guys may see some amazing stained glass work at points in time as well. Just take a look at this one. Here we've got another mixed media piece, but you're going to notice it's very different from the piece we just saw. Different in composition. Obviously, it's not one figure, it's multiple figures. Different in terms of color. Different in terms of probably emotional response to it, all sorts of things. So let's again start by going to Lafayette High School in Wildwood. Folks, do you have a response to this? What do you think about the color, the composition, etc.? And as you look at this work, does this lead you to a different question for Mr. Powell about how he forms compositions or how he thinks about color, maybe? Take it away, Lafayette.
Hi, my name is Nicole Chalice again. And first of all, this is gorgeous. I really like this. But, like, how do you get those colors to mix and look so naturally and eccentric? Because that's something I have trouble with. How do you make them look like natural but still eccentric?
Oh, very cool, Rob. That's a great question. Thanks very much. Go for it, Lonnie.
And I guess she means by eccentric red faces and green faces and yellow faces. But how do you get it to work? You just have enough nerve to try it. And like I said, I call most of my pieces of art. I don't like to refer to them as work, because they're not really what you think of when you think of work, okay? I like to call my pieces experiments, and this was an experiment. And this is an old piece that's, that I've had for a while, and probably, let's see, I did this in 1987, and it's been gracing my home for all of those years. I've just recently decided that I would sell it.
Well, now, one of the things I'm intrigued by, in addition to the color, which is vivid but not bright.
It's not loud.
It's not loud. It's kind of muted. So I get a real sense of color, but the color doesn't overtake the image.
Right.
But to me, there's also a real sense of movement in the picture. Were you interested in some sense of free spirit here?
Sure. And this is one where I have relied more heavily on line in this one. This was an experiment with using line, and as a matter of fact, on the main figures, I have really outlined them with charcoal. So in this piece, it's basically an acrylic painting, but there's also pastel and charcoal mixed in this to come up with this. to me, acrylic colors are kind of just bright and they don't have that same vibrancy that oil has, okay? And so I used that and muted it, put a little grays and different colors into these colors so that they're not as stark, not as harsh. Although this is definitely red, and that's definitely green.
But they have no sense of fluorescent or that kind of thing popping out at all.
Right.
We've had an email question come in that I don't want you to answer yet because I also want the kids to think about it. The person watching has noticed the mouths and that they're open and they're not all the same. So the question they're asking students is, what about the mouths? Why are they the way they are? Why aren't they all the same? What's happening in the picture? So I want you guys to think about that too and maybe offer your thoughts on that. Let's go to Corning High School for either your thoughts about the mouths here, your thoughts about this particular work, what you think about it, and a question from Corning as well. Take it away, Arkansas.
Mixed media pieces, what media combinations do you prefer and why?
I don't think I prefer any of them. When I'm working on a piece, I think first, what will work? Okay, you can't mix all mediums together. Okay, some mediums, like you wouldn't mix oil and watercolor, or you wouldn't. There's really not a whole lot you can mix with oil, but with acrylic you can, because it is water-based, and you can mix other water-based mediums with it. But what will work is is a better question than why did I pick it?
And of course, part of that is just you figure that out over time.
And you figure that out over time, and you figure that out with study. And a lot of the times they'll say, "Don't mix this with oil."
And then you try it and see what happens.
And you try it and see what happens, and you realize why they told you that, or you say, well, it looks all right to me.
Well, it's your work. You get to make that decision. Let's go to Friendship High School back in Texas again. Question for Mr. Powell, or your thoughts on this work? Go right ahead, Friendship.
Hi, my name is Jordan Watts. Are they singing?
That answer is yes. And we'll let Lonnie speak to that. But before I get to there, do you have a question right now as well, Friendship, that you want Lonnie to deal with? And then we'll go back to the singing and we'll talk about the title of this picture.
Question. I'm Jenna Tatum, and I was just wondering, what message were you trying to show through this piece?
Oh, very cool, because it goes right along with the singing idea as well.
Right.
Talk about this one, Lonnie, its title and the message you're after here. And are these women singing?
They definitely are singing. And this is called, as a matter of fact, the name is Ellipses, small a, and yet they sing. Okay? And of course, this is kind of the same idea that Maya Angelou probably had when she wrote the poem, And Still I Rise. Mm-hmm. Okay? And yet they sing. Through all kinds of hardships, all kind of bad weather and good times and bad times. And sometimes I still hear them singing. And sure, and they might not be singing all of the same words, or they're not singing the same words in the same way. Maybe there's an alto, soprano, and they're harmonizing here. But it's about harmony and harmonizing and perseverance. And those are themes that I run in and out of all of the time.
We're going to talk about those themes as we continue to look at the works, because you're going to notice that Lonnie talks about the fact that he paints people. Obviously, there's figures in his work, but we shouldn't think of it as in the same way as a portrait. You know, like when you look at a Hans Holbein piece, or you just see the lovely painting of George Washington that everybody's familiar with that Gilbert Stuart did. You think of as a portrait. Here, we're really looking at an emotional response, and these women are expressing themselves. And I think you probably saw it with the young girl in the work we just saw, and you're going to certainly see it with the men that we're going to see in the next work that we go on. And that emotional expression is something you're really after, right, Lonnie?
That's what I'm really after, and we're going to talk some more about that. But this piece, and I wanted to say this before I left, if you remember the first piece we talked about, and I talked about the model and the attitude of the model, and it's feisty and that sort of thing. I used a model. A real person inspired that. This piece came directly out of my head. Little doodles you make while you're talking on the telephone.
Your doodles just look a lot better than mine.
But so this is a conceptual piece that comes just from ideas out of my head. The other one is from a model. I use both of them, but my feelings and emotions are pretty much the constant.
Very cool. We're going to go to that next piece. So we're going to go up the stairs, and you're going to have a chance to see a pastel work, which will be of men. And as we walk up, you guys will have a chance to look at a bit as Lonnie and I take position here next to the work. Again, a pastel with lots of color. And you're going to notice we've seen an individual person. We've seen 3 women, and now we're seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 men in this work. Take a moment to look at it. Think about what you like about this painting, what you notice about the composition, about the color, about the line. Especially, I think, might be very interesting, both in terms of the lines as you see them go across, and I'll call it kind of the textural line you guys are going to notice here throughout. And be thinking about what might have caused that textural line, because that's very interesting to me when Lonnie was talking about creating this piece, how that happened. And let's begin by going once again to Lafayette High School out in Wildwood. Thoughts about this work, and another question for Mr. Powell, Lafayette?
Yeah, hi, my name is Danny Lamar, and my question is, you seem to be drawing the viewer's eyes towards the clothing of the men instead of, say, like their face or something. And I was wondering if there was a reason for that.
That's a very astute observation. Lonnie, talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out whether I have bought into her premise.
Okay.
Okay.
And you don't necessarily have to.
Yeah. But, well, this is an experiment basically in blue and red, okay? A lot of shades of blue and 1 shade of red. When you're using 2 primary colors like this, there has always been I've always liked blue on top of red, or red and blue next to each other. And so basically this is a painting about color in one respect, and the other is kind of a calling to the black male. There has been a lot of attention given the black male, is a lot of negative attention, and I'm calling for the black male to come back home, to unite, to work together, and the chorus. Everybody talks about the red and the blue, but the green is very important too. I like the rhythm of the green running through all of this. And basically these are bewildered and confused people who are trying to get their act together.
Okay. Good question and good answer. First, that gives a lot of information about the painting. Let's go back to Corning. Your thoughts about this work, and another question for Mr. Powell. Corning?
Yes, my name's Derek Patrick, and what's your favorite emotion that you project on your pictures?
Do you have an emotion you prefer to display, or that you see yourself coming back to more often, Lonnie?
No, I don't really have a favorite emotion. It's like a man with 10 kids. He shouldn't say which one he favors, But I would say I try to do happiness as much as I could, but then I can't ignore sadness and pain.
Very cool. Thanks for that question. Let's go to Friendship High School again. Friendship, a question from you.
I'm Andrew Gonzalez. I want to know if, when you have a concept or an idea, do you skip straight to like looking for references or start doodling or looking for things?
So the concept's in your head, the idea's in your head. Do you go places for references about other works maybe or other examples, or do you just start doodling and putting stuff on paper, or do you spend a certain amount of time every day at a drawing location? How does all that work for you?
Sure. I try to get in the habit of at least sitting at the easel every day. Every day I can, I do this. Sometimes ideas come in and go through you directly to the easel, and you wonder whether you had anything to do with them at all. But you got to be sitting at the easel when this happens. Unfortunately, a lot of times these feelings came in the middle of a history class or an English class or something, and whatever the teacher was saying, I might have been gone off daydreaming and missed something else important. But I try to give a certain amount of time for the muses to work when they want to work. But my whole life, everywhere I look, I see a picture. I see combinations of lights and darks, and I see things that interest me, and they're always in my head. And so when I sit down and start to doodle, it's not that I started from a blank head. I mean, these things are already in me, and they just
flow out.
Flow out.
Speaking of flowing out, I want to talk about the technique of this work as we look at these lines that go across here. How did you create that? Is it you drew and you erased? I know that answer is not right, because obviously I'm asking this question because I know the answer. But talk about that technique you used, Lonnie.
Right. This was basically an accident. I put the paper, I taped my paper down on a piece of cardboard. When I started using the pastel, the ridges in the cardboard showed through. And I saw that and I liked it. And I not only did it in this work, but I did it in other works. And so a lot of times just experimenting, you come up with little techniques that seem to work, and you keep them in your repertoire.
Very cool. So, who knows what tomorrow's experiment, guys, that you're dealing with in class might be something that inspires you and you work with for a long period of time. We're going to move to another piece now, and as we go to the next piece, we're also going to deal with an email question we've got. Don't forget, it's email at live@hectv.org. That's live@hectv.org. And Lonnie, as we walk up into the next room, the email question was the students are familiar with the fact that you used to be a teacher. So the question is, as a result of no longer teaching, retiring from the classroom, has your work changed any? Do you work more? Do you work less? Do you see yourself doing different subject matter or at all because you're no longer teaching?
Well, I guess teaching will always be a part of me. It's just not something that you can totally forget. Like I told you earlier when I was talking with the kids here in the studio, it did make me kind of wish I was still teaching, talking to the young students who were interested in art. But like I tell everybody, if I lay down and take a nap, and I'll be all right when I get up. But yes, it has given me more time to do my own work and to concentrate on it more. And teaching also allowed me to feed my family, and without compromising my art. I still want my art to be my own, and I don't want a lot of people dibbling in and telling me how to do my art anymore. Of course, I did go to school and I did have instructors, And I did everything my instructors instructed me to do, but when I went home and got my own work out, well, I still experimented in my way too.
Very cool. This piece, as you guys are going to notice, is a little bit different than what we've seen before. We've seen, it's similar in color to the first one, but the technique's different. It's a mixed media piece. And to a large extent, the emotions we've seen so far are pretty strong, powerful emotions. And this picture attracts me for a lot of reasons. I like this very much. But part of it is because the tone, the emotion tone, seems to be very different than, the ones we've seen before. As we look at this piece, guys, I also know that as a teacher, Mr. Powell is interested in, if you guys have a work that you want to share from your location, we had mentioned that, and we'd be happy to see it. So as we go to questions this round, if you do have a work from any school that you'd like to share with us, let me know that, because then we'll go to that after we finish with this particular piece. Lafayette, let's hear what you think about this piece. What do you notice about its line, its composition, about these two women, and what's another question you have for Mr. Powell?
My name is Nicole Chalice and Daniel Lamar, and we have two questions for you. My question is, it looks like this is during a depressing time or, a sad time. Is there any reason for that, or were you just, influenced?
All right, go ahead and ask your second question now so we get it from you, and then we'll deal with both of them. Go ahead with your second question.
My question is, it looks like this might be a work of art, or a piece of art, as you would say, that has a story behind it, perhaps, actual characters that are supposed to be drawn here. And I was wondering if there is a story behind it, what's supposed to be going on.
Very good. Two interesting questions, both. One about the emotions you might have been experiencing at this time, and two, the story. So what are your thoughts on those, Lonnie?
Okay, now, unlike the last two pieces that we saw, this is another piece that goes back to the use of models. And, but my models are not usually models that might model for a class. They are models that I see, and it's something in those people that I want to portray. And it's not necessarily what they look like.
So it could be two people sitting on a bus or something.
Right.
Okay.
It could be the light in which they're sitting in, or the mood around them. But these two particular young ladies, they were twins. And I saw them as one person, okay? And I saw, and they were not only twins, but they were sisters who, to me, seemed to genuinely like each other, okay? So some people might see sadness in this, but I think the word you used, tenderness, I think was more my aim than sadness or depression. And working with two figures and draping them in materials, and I just thought that the composition, this one is a compositional experience. The other one that we just saw, my brothers, that it was more of a color experience. This is more of a compositional experience.
Cool.
And as in the first one, the drawing. And this is a combination of pencil, charcoal, and pastel, all mixed together here. And
it's interesting because at first you don't necessarily notice it when you're just on the other side of the room or walking into the room. The gold tones that are in here really, when the light hits it and you walk up close, really give this picture another dimension up close that changes a little bit for you when you're further away. Corning, Arkansas, your thoughts on this work and a question for Mr. Powell? Go right ahead.
What can I do to enhance the emotional impact of this painting right here?
All right. Very cool. So you're talking about the emotional impact. One, I really like the colors. I personally respond to color a lot in art, and I really like the colors that I see. Lonnie, you're the man, though, who's the teacher.
And I see the colors that you have, they work well together, but they're all kind of cool colors. Okay, there looks like there might be a hint of red above up there in the upper right-hand corner. I'm not sure, but it seems like it needs some warmth somewhere with something that resembles red, orange, or maybe a pale yellow or something. Just a little of it. You don't change the whole thing, but just maybe emphasize a part where you want the viewer to look, where you want to focus on this piece. Okay. Do you understand me?
Does that make sense? Your thoughts about what he just said?
Is that red in the upper right-hand corner there? It's kind of a reddish color up in here.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe if you could just hit that just a little harder, might focus in. It seems to me it needs warmth, a little more warmth.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Lonnie. Thanks very much for sharing the work. That's absolutely great. Corning, while we're with you, do you guys have another question for Mr. Powell? And then we're going to go to Friendship to see if they have a work to share and a question, and then we'll keep going this way. Corning, another question from you guys?
I was wondering, in your drawing, how long did it take you to achieve the shading, like that you wanted it to be perfect? How long did that take you?
Okay, and as we answer that question, Lonnie, we're going to move back into the other room
All right.
where they can see us a little better. We can just talk right to this camera. How do you know when the shading's right? What's the time frame we're talking about for this piece as an example?
Wow. How long did it take me? I think her question was, how long did it take me to get to the point where I knew my shading and all of that was right?
Right, what you wanted,
Right. And I would say about 60 years.
So obviously he's not saying this particular work, but the fact that you've been working so long, you have an eye now for what you like and a sense. And I think that's probably an important thing for students to understand, is that part of it is time, that you've developed over time. This is what I am attracted to. This is what I think is a finished piece. And somebody else who with less experience or a different experience would just come to a different conclusion.
Right.
Okay. Good question, Corning. Let's go to Friendship. In Friendship, let us know if you're going to share a picture and if you've got a question. Either way, take it away.
We're going to show you a piece of work. We'll see if we have a question.
All right, we'll go to your piece of...
We're going to show you a piece of work.
Well, we'll go to the piece of work then. We'll go back to the room where we can see that piece of work.
Okay. Some more green and blue.
Okay. Go ahead.
Can you step back a little bit so that the light can hit it a little more? Well, there you go.
Oh, perfect location. And go ahead and speak to this. Talk a little bit about your work here, young man.
Okay. Basically, the project that we had to do was to draw a tree 4 times and in four different styles. One was in realistically, and one had to be abstract. I think, one had to be in the style of Our Own Way, and one had to be in the style of a famous artist. And so I went outside and drew this tree, and this is the realistic one, and it has a curve to the trunk, and it reminded me of a bonsai tree from Asia.
Right.
And so I just I kind of went off, on that whole Oriental thing with the moon and the beams coming off from the moon, and I thought that I would just play off of that. And you can't really see it, but this board right here is lifted up. It just kind of adds dimension. But I had a question. This part right down here, basically what it's talking that this is, supposed to be representing, is how in Asia there's a lot of places where Christianity isn't widespread or accepted. And this is a table of people sitting down and praying. And so I tried to use some reds and try to keep it a little bit darker up here. And, just down here to make it sort of brighter. And it just talks about, how it can be subdued sometimes in Asia. So I was curious if some way to push this back a little bit, this section right here, do you think that adding some of this brown that you see here in the roots and stuff to this right here might help?
Thanks very much for the explanation and for sharing the work. And Lonnie, what are your
Okay.
thoughts as you look at it here?
Okay. Now, see, I thought you were trying to say that Christianity was what you preferred, and so that you had it bright for that reason. What you would wanting to do is to subdue it a little bit so that it blends more in with the rest of the composition, but not lose it, right?
Yes, I mean, I do want this to be right. I mean, I want it to represent, just what I believe to,
Right.
be Christianity, and to be, representing God and how, shining. But I wanted to, it seems a little bit plain, and I think it needs maybe something here, but I don't know if you can see it very well.
Yeah. I'm missing a little of the middle part of your piece that is right above the very light piece at the bottom. But if you want to bring it back into the picture, I would suggest that you maybe take some of that blue at the top and glaze over it with a thin wash or something that would make it recede back into the paper a little more and not stick out like, this bright light, okay? Unless your message is, that bright light is the only way. If you're trying to keep it in harmony with the rest of the religions of the world, it might need to be subdued a little bit, okay? But if you're saying that this is the way, then you're doing that right now. But me, I would probably take a little of that blue that's in the moon rays, and is that watercolor you're using? What did you use for the moon and the sun, or the moon up there?
The moon, this right
No,
here
no,
is actually
at the
a
top,
it's a
at the
paper
top, at the top.
But yes, I used Prismacolor. For that.
Prismacolor, okay. You
Yes,
might
and
be able
I
to.
used, oil pastel.
Oil pastel. Okay, now sometimes you can take that oil pastel and put it on, and then you can take a rag and kind of blend it in, where you can still see these figures come through with, just kind of rub it until it's a thin glaze over it, so so it's not as bright. And I think that it would harmonize better with the whole picture. Right now, it looks like an attachment to the rest of the piece. You see what I'm saying?
Thanks very much for sharing.
But try on a different sheet of paper, try taking that pastel and taking a rag or something and try and rubbing it into the paper and see if you can still see things underneath it before you try on your piece, and see if that'll work for you. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Cool. Thank you very much for sharing. That's absolutely great. We're going to go to a different example of Mr. Powell's now and let you look at an example of watercolor, which we haven't seen yet, and also an example of a landscape. All what you've seen so far are figures. He did landscapes at one time, and now he's coming back to them. This is a more recent work. The date was just last spring when he finished it. So we're going to move back into the other room and look at that, and then we'll see what other questions you have as well. So, Lonnie, thanks for going in and having the chance to look at this piece now.
I wish I could have seen what was in between that top and that bottom a little better.
So as you look at this one, students, you're going to notice that this is indeed a watercolor. It's obviously an autumn landscape, which obviously looks very different on the page than the charcoal and the pastels we've seen before. And as you guys look at this work before Lonnie speaks to what gets him interested in watercolor and why he's going back to landscapes, let's see what other questions you guys might have. We've got about 8 minutes left, so we want to make sure you all get a chance to ask a final question. And don't forget, there are always, you can send us questions to live@hectv.org. That's live@hectv.org, and we'll happily send answers to you after the program. And if you've got other works that you might be interested in sharing with Mr. Powell, then scan that image or take a picture of it and send us the JPEG via email. and see what his response is to that work. Because that kind of conversation that we just had with the student in Arkansas, pardon me, in Texas, and also the student in Arkansas, that's really cool to see that conversation go back and forth as you think about the piece and what you like and what you might want to change and manipulate. I think it's important that artists have the chance to collaborate that way as they listen to each other. Lafayette, what are your thoughts about this watercolor piece, and what's a question you might want to ask?
Hi, I'm Mike, and I was wondering, how long did it take you to make this piece?
You know, I actually, people ask me that all the time, and actually I really lose concept of time. But it didn't take that long. Probably actual working hours, I probably did this in 5 good hours of real time. But most of my time is spent painting a little bit and then sitting down and looking at what I've painted and deciding where I'm going to go. Now that takes more time than the actual painting.
Good question, Lafayette.
So if you add all of that time in it, it might have taken a week, okay? But the actual painting time, probably 5 hours or less. But in watercolors, you put down a layer, then you paint over that layer, and then you paint over that layer. And so a piece like this might have 3 or 4 layers over it. Instead of this ground, you know, it might have been blue at one time, and then you put a little red on top of the blue, and then it turns a little brown, and then you might want to go back and liven it up a little bit and splash a little orange in there. And so these colors are not colors that are just come right out of the tube. Sometimes it's a lot of washes laid on top to come up with these colors in watercolors.
Very cool. Corning, Arkansas, your thoughts about this piece and a question from you?
Hi, my name is Jamie Rush, and I think your painting is just dead out gorgeous. And I was wondering, how do you make all your paintings look so realistic and just so out there like that?
Okay, well, realism has always been a goal of mine. So all of my life I've practiced trying to make things look real. And so now what I'm trying to do is trying to make them look a little less real and a little freer and a little looser and not so much detail. Of course, I would have been crazy to try to draw every leaf here, okay? So you find ways of, once again, putting darks against lights, bright colors against dull colors, and you start working contrast instead of little leaves, okay? When, and I think that's working better because the older I've gotten, the better, the worse my eyes have become. And so now I'm not seeing all of that detail like I used to, and I'm enjoying it.
Using it to your advantage.
Using it to my advantage.
That's very well. Friendship, let's go back to you guys. Thoughts about this work and a question for Mr. Powell?
Compared to your other pieces of like artwork, the other ones have like a story behind it. Does this one have a story, or was it just for leisure?
This was just being struck with the beauty of nature. God, who is the greatest of all artists, put this here, and I saw it, and it just inspired me, and I had to add my 2 cents to it.
and you did it quite nicely. I love the colors of this work, and I also like the way it's matted with the colors. It's very autumnal in the matting as well, which I think really sets off the colors that we see. In just a couple minutes we have left, we've had an email question to ask about training. Your training, for example, did you go to art school? Did you go to college? And what, in terms of training and practice and all that kind of thing, what advice would you give to kids? And you've been doing it a long time, Lonnie.
I went to as I said earlier, I had no role models, nobody to go and pester and ask, how do you make this better? Until my high school art teachers. And they were the most knowledgeable people that I had met up until that time. And of course, some of them, they were still, even after becoming an adult, they were still very significant in my life. But the first bona fide artist that I had ever met was at Lincoln University, where I attended college. And I had the opportunity to work, I hate to say work under, but learn from a fellow named J.D. Parks. And he became probably my teacher, my mentor. He looked after me and kept me out of trouble in college. And so he was an artist, a father figure, and just a great gentleman. And he taught me probably more than anybody else has ever taught me.
It's good, I think, for the students to learn that. Lonnie, we only got 30 seconds left, but I'm glad they heard that story, because remember that in terms of mentors, you find them all over the place.
Sure.
Thanks for being here. Robert Powell at Portfolio Gallery, thanks for sharing your space with us. Learn more about Portfolio Gallery at their website, portfoliogallerystlouis.org. This exhibition, if you're in the St. Louis region, goes until the middle of January. We look forward to seeing you in another HEC TV Live. Thanks for being part of our in-depth program with artist Lonnie Powell today.